Hello, my beautiful friends. It's Maggie here, and you're hearing American Dream, a track from the new album by my guest this week on Minds on Mushrooms, the one and only Jordan Power. Jordan is a writer, performer, and creative channel whose voice, quite literally, was unlocked during a profound medicine ceremony that opened him to past lives, deep healing, and divine creative gifts that had been waiting beneath the surface all along. This episode is a powerful reminder that we are all so much more than what we've been taught, more intuitive, more gifted, and more capable of transformation than we've been led to believe. In this episode, we go there. We talk psychedelics, purpose, grief, queerness, chronic illness, but also we dive deep into meditation, manifestation, the law of attraction, breath work, radical honesty, and dating as a spiritual mirror. It's bold, it's funny, it's full of fire. And most of all, it's a call to remember who you are, because your gifts aren't just meant to be uncovered, they're meant to be celebrated. Let's get into it. This is Minds on Mushrooms with Jordan Power. But first, this episode is brought to you by Golden Rule Mushrooms. When it comes to microdosing, where you source your medicine matters. That's why I trust and only recommend Golden Rule Mushrooms. Their blends are lab-tested, consciously crafted, and rooted in reverence for the healing path. Founded by women and built on integrity, Golden Rule is a trusted and safe source for intentional microdosing. Whether you're just beginning or deepening your practice, you can feel confident in the quality, care, and consciousness behind every dose. Their tagline says it best: elevate your mind, unlock your potential, transform your life. Visit goldenrulemushrooms.com and use code Maggie10, that's Maggie10, at checkout for savings on your first order. And as always, trust the medicine, trust yourself, and let the journey unfold. Now sit back, open your mind, and enjoy this sacred dose of Minds on Mushrooms. Hello. Welcome back to Minds on Mushrooms. I'm your host, Maggie Kirkwood. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I am sitting with Jordan Power. He is here to talk to us about a new single he's going to release and kind of the story behind it. He has no musical background, and here he is with a huge Spotify following. And I just can't wait to crack into the story and learn how psychedelics helped you evolve and this whole new path that you seem to be on today. Thank you so much for joining, Jordan.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Off screen, you were starting to talk about kind of like past Jordan and how you were living life, I guess, unaware. Do you mind kind of diving straight into your experience and what transcended for you?
Yeah, so I was a completely unconscious human being till about 13, 14 months ago. I went to Bali on this meandering journey where I met a woman in a tent named Dina, who I still speak with. And she's what launched this music career. I did many things in my life. I still run a marketing agency, podcasting. My friend and I used to host one of the biggest LGBT podcasts in the world. I was on television, radio. I wrote a newspaper column, but I was always kind of like feverishly searching why am I on earth? I feel like I meant to do something. And it's this woman in Bali, Dina, a spiritual healer, that sort of said, "Oh, you're here for the music." And she sort of directed me to different mediums and stuff, multiple mediums who hadn't met, said that the reason I came to Earth on this incarnation was because the last life I was a musician, but I took my own life.
Oh, wow.
And and then I came back to make it right. And that was sort of the two opinions of these two mediums that lived in very distant, different countries even. And so I met with Dina. I was there for a week. We were in Ubud. I just went in with an open mind, even though I thought some of it was a little ridiculous at first. Talking to my 7-year-old self and, different modalities that we were exploring. And I flew back to Canada. I turned to my producer, who I'd kind of known, and I said, I think I'm ready to make music now. I'd never made a song at this point. I said, I think I'm ready for it. And I can't tell you why, but let's make a EP album of 5 songs and let's do it in 3 weeks because I was limited for time.
Wow.
And he's like, man, you can't write music. You haven't written music. You've never been in a studio. Can you even sing? And there was just this extreme confidence that had come over me where I was like, I just know it's meant to be. So I'm just going to stick with it. I'm going to explore it.
Wow.
And yeah. And the first day he sent me one of these production with some chords I liked. I sat on my couch on my laptop. The song was called Brand New. It's the first one I ever wrote. And it was a complete experience where an energy came over my body. My chest felt extremely warm, and I moved into observer effect, which is something people get on psychedelics or deep meditation. And immediately my fingers almost started moving on my keyboard, and I had written pretty much the whole song in about 15 minutes.
Damn.
Yeah, out of body
So
completely.
would
Yeah.
you liken this to channeling? Or
I'm
was it
starting
more
to warm up to that idea now because I've written 19 songs since then and
mm,
released them. Several of them are on the radio at the moment. And people ask me how I write with no musical background at all. And the answer is I believe it has something to do with my ability to understand frequencies, which
mm.
the mediums also said is related to another previous life where I was a woman and I was a spiritual healer.
Oh.
And so it's like perhaps, and again, I'm just positing here,
Mhm.
but perhaps the previous life of musician, being a musician, has then been married with the life before that, where I was a spiritual healer. And now that I've been able to have a spiritual awakening and really deepen my practice, um, I can write usually 2 to 3 songs a day now.
Wow. So I'd like to back it up just a little bit here. So when you say 13, 14 months ago, you were kind of just living on autopilot. I think you had mentioned off screen your dog had passed away. Were you knowingly not happy, or were you just kind of gliding and just try, and you said kind of divine timing as far as meeting Dina and attending, was it a ceremony with medicine or was it just all frequency modalities? Let's talk about the experience more, and how it came to be, if you don't mind.
Sure, no problem. So I will say, since I've come onto this earth, let's say it's this incarnation, I have felt like I was a bit darker as a kid. I never felt like I fit in. I spent most of my childhood getting relentlessly teased for being gay, the way I spoke. Um, I used to have people kick me in the head. My parents used to come to the school. The first 20 years of my life was pretty dark. There was a lot of SSRI medication. There was
Mm,
anti-anxiety medications. There was meetings with therapists, just sort of wondering. A lot of it was really, I just never fit in with society. I still don't. Sometimes I'll go in large groups of people and I'll feel very lonely, and then I'll go back home and I'll also feel lonely.
mm,
I believe that I don't. I haven't really fit in here, and some people say that's like you're a star seed. You come from another planet. You don't fit in with the density of this place. Different theories. Um, but I have explored many things over my life. And when I was 18 years old, I was diagnosed with a chronic illness called ulcerative colitis.
okay.
And I battled that for about 18 years. And through consciousness work and through getting every chemical that exists out of my house, I
Mm,
was able to sort of reverse not only my physical illness, but my mental illness and things that I was struggling with. The psychedelics themselves, initially, when I used them prior to Dina, they were really just to get high with my friends.
sure.
And there was no impetus behind it. It was just, some hijinks. And now I truly do use them for medicine, whether it's DMT, LSD. I've used mushrooms, and I've also done ketamine therapy here in California.
Got you. Um, so when you were in Bali and having the experience with Dina, and the whole revelation of this past life notion that you were a musician and had ended your life, was that something that came, a message that she delivered to you through ceremony, through working with her? And then you just did you just feel so empowered through the medicine and through ceremony that when you got back home and you were talking to your producer, straight away, let's get started. Let's start, talk to me about that. I guess I want to hear more about the ceremony and kind of like, it sounds like you had quite the breakthrough experience.
Yeah, Dina was doing more. I mean, she's a therapist mixed with a spiritual healer, which is kind of a really interesting combination, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes with long-term therapy, you can get into trouble where it's 2 years in, you're still living in the past, you're not manifesting from the present moment. So she sort of brought those two worlds together for me. What I did with her was really a lot of subconscious reprogramming and nervous system regulation, which is what really has to happen with people before they manifest or before they're able to get into any next level, right? I was in deep fight or flight. I had a lot of trauma with my dad leaving. I had abusive relationships. I was traumatized most of my life. So I was always someone who was hyper vigilant on edge. So the two of us sort of worked together to reverse that, get to the core of what's going on, get the energy moving through the meridian zones, tapping, various different modalities we explored. And then when I got back to Canada, I went on the psychedelic journeys myself. One of the things that I have a lot of experience with psychedelics. One of the things is I usually do psychedelics alone for the reason that energy transference is quite real. And if you're with another person who is inexperienced or is in a bad place, they can easily project their electromagnetic field onto you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I truly feel it's sacred medicine. And so I do it alone. Most of my trips, DMT, LSD, mushrooms, have been alone. I've done a few with friends. What I did notice when I got back to Canada was I sort of had a new lease on life. I was looking at reality differently. Anything seemed possible, and I think you need that precursor before you start going out there and just taking psychedelics. You probably have interviewed a lot of people who say the first time was a horror show, or the first time I
Mm-hmm.
had a bad trip, or I had already done psychedelics so many times before that I was now going in with like, oh, I'm the operant power of my reality. I
Mm-hmm.
can manifest things. I can attract energy. I can attract music. And so it was just a different approach to it. But once I did the one mushroom trip when I got back to Canada of about 6 grams, that was right before I
Wow.
made my first
Mm.
album.
Okay.
And it was like a faucet turned on where I couldn't stop receiving from, let's say, channeling
Mm-hmm.
from wherever the music was coming from. It just would not stop. I'd hear a song in a pharmacy and I'd just start writing a top line and writing in my phone.
Wow.
It was a strange experience, and it hasn't turned off really since.
Did you ever have any of a nuance of this happening growing up, or any glimmer of you used to be a musical artist in a past life, or it was all just kind of brought on in your Bali experience?
When I was 19, I told my parents that I wanted to move to California to pursue music, which is
Okay.
funny, now that I've eventually done it. Um, and I was really interested in music as a kid. It's always kind of been my best friend. It's something I've always leaned on. But in terms of being technically trained or really pursuing it to a degree, no.
Mm.
Um, but once it's clicked, it has been, almost like a prolonged deja vu where the first time I went in the recording studio, I had this moment of like, what am I doing? I don't even know where I am. I don't know the buttons. I don't know. I was with my producer. I was like, do I even belong here? But something came over me in the first hour where I felt extremely comfortable and was almost directing things and producing things. And I felt at peace. And to me, that has to point to the existence of some sort of past life or something I'm drawing from. Because before that, with nothing going on before that, what would be the other reasonable explanation?
Sure. So let's break that down. Sometimes when you're feeling kind of a warmth in your chest or some sort of presence, and does it help you feel supported and the flow is just there? And is it just something that comes on instantaneously, or do you have to kind of like enter into it?
You have to be, people say, like I was talking to my producer the other day, we're working on 3 new songs to try to finish up this album, and we're on, a self-imposed schedule. It's really not even, I don't even have to release them, but I want to do every month. And I'll run into periods where the magic turns off. It happened to me in Miami actually this year in February, where I went there to write music. For 9 days, I couldn't write anything. And I went into sort of this spiral where I thought, oh my God, my purpose, the thing I love, the thing I make money at doing right now, what's going on? And then I was admitted to the hospital for a random rash in my body.
Oh,
And
wow.
the next morning I woke up and it turned on. And one of the things I do fear in some of this is that it's a trauma response, right?
Mm.
Where it's kicking into very much like comedy, being funny.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
kicking in to sort of save me. Um, and sometimes it's completely strange. There won't even be chords playing. I'll be in my shower and all of a sudden it's like someone, that feeling where you forgot your wallet at home and you
Mhm.
get that kind of, it just hits
Yes.
you really fast. That happens to me in the shower. I'll sing sometimes an entire chorus, the whole words. I'll sing basically every word all the way through, run out to my phone like a psycho, half naked, just screaming it into my phone. My phone is just 500 or 600 voice notes of me just throwing things
Oh, I
out, and a
see, I
lot of them
see.
become songs. Um, but I think it's frequency based because if I try to write and sit down with the piano, it doesn't work as well as if I'm just sort of meditating, breathing, doing some breath work, getting into a state where I'm in receivership.
Okay.
And that's been the way I can tap into it, but it's extremely freaky, and I can't really explain it to people unless they themselves have had that kind of experience.
Well, I really appreciate you just sharing. And I am someone, I really like to be open and normalize some of our gifts that many of us are unaware that we had. And I think that there's many modalities. This brings me to my next question. Let's talk about your meditation practice and your breath work. Are you doing kind of um, exclusive things to help reach this state? Would you mind opening up a little bit about your meditation practice?
Sure. So
Mhm.
I start every day with a meditation practice. I know I feel like everyone says that it's like a trite line at this point, but
Mhm.
I sit down and I have learned that everything is frequency vibration. Nikola Tesla famously said that, and that's
Mhm.
I've applied that to my romantic life, my personal life, my professional life, music. Um, so what we really need to do is on a daily basis, I sit down, I play solfeggio frequencies that open up specifically the heart chakra,
Mhm.
639 hertz or 528 are kind of the two that I go between. And what I do first is I start some slow breaths and I remind myself that there's no past, no future, only present moment. Operating from that point, some people call it the 0 point or whatever it's referred to as.
Mhm.
And then I feel the frequency of that, what it is that I want to obtain. So say that's abundance, say that's love. I sit into it. I breathe deeply into my heart. I feel my heart glowing, and then I feel the emotions around what I want. So, um, I've done it to manifest partners. I've done it to manifest business out of nowhere. And, if you are a believer of some of the new iterations of quantum physics, the idea is that if reality is a projection out from your mind, that essentially reality starts to shift as you move to a different frequency. So a lot of my meditative practice is intentional.
Mhm.
It's about a specific objective, and it's about moving towards the future reality that I want. And so I find, and this is a big tip for people, is starting with breath work is sort of the best way to tackle it, particularly if you're going to meditate later in the day. Because if
Mhm.
you think about it, if you're running around with the kids and someone just cut you off in traffic, your nervous system's all over the place, it's much harder for you to then get to that point. It might take an extra 20, 30 minutes to get there to a meditative, peaceful state. But I find breath work sort of that hack where you can do the breath work. I like to do the 3 pattern breath work, and I do that for about 5 minutes, get into that Zen state, and then
Mhm.
move into meditation. And a lot of the breath work classes, I go to breath work classes twice a week here in San Diego.
Okay.
They usually conclude with the meditation at the end.
Oh, I see.
After we've done breath work for 25 minutes to get our
Mm.
trauma and our energy moving.
I see. Well, I just love, love, love talking about meditation. And while I have you heard of, I've been working with the central channel breath. Essentially, it is a cyclical breath. So if we look from our crown to our root, it's a series of exhales down and then inhale through the root, but you're like clearing your channel to try and be open and clean for receiving.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hear if you had heard of it, the central channel breath.
No, I'm always open. I'll look it up. I do the three pattern, the one that's kind of stomach, chest, out. I don't want to
Yes.
really do it for you.
So
I look like an
I
idiot.
believe Dr. Sue Morter,
Mhm.
she might be, well, for sure she's central channel. And she also has the belly, chest, outer, and then exhale as far 360.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm just, for me, I thought I was meditating just in Pilates or yoga, and I was, but like you were saying, really starting with your breath, for me, that's the quickest way to get all of this stopping.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, I think that I've been working also just holding my breath and just kind of playing with I don't know, brainwave, brainwave
Yeah.
and frequency. I know it's hard to explain, but I love it. I'm so fascinated by it, and I'm so happy when people share kind of what's worked for them.
Yeah.
Um,
I also do. I mean, this sounds, again, it might sound wacky to people, but it won't sound wacky to you.
mhm,
A friend of mine suggested something called network spinal. It's a form of chiropractic,
okay.
sort of Reiki meets energy work, but it's a form of nervous system regulation. I've been doing it for about 2.5 months now, once a week, and you go and you breathe very deeply, different states, and you get create a spinal wave of energy. You're laying on your front, and they do very, very light manipulation. So it's like kind of tapping certain areas, gateways of the spine,
Mm.
moving energy through. I don't fully understand the science behind it. I'm not going to pretend I do. And initially, it did sound a little wacky to me, but I trusted my friend and I trusted a lot of the people that I met when I was there and I interacted with, and they were wonderful people. And it's done an amazing job of regulating my nervous system, very much like
Wow.
meditation.
Would you mind
Yeah.
repeating the name of that again, please?
So the place I go to is called Twin Waves. It's in
Oh,
Solana Beach, but
okay.
the practice they do all across North America. It's called Network Spinal,
Network spinal.
and yeah, a lot of people have explored it, but I think it's kind of growing right now, and it's it's amazing. I'll be honest. I mean, a woman cut me off in traffic the other day, and I just was like, "It is what it is." Old me would have been like, projecting, yelling. I really do credit these two women for that. So
Wow.
another way to regulate the system.
Yeah. So when we look at some more of your intentional medicinal experiences, um, what have you found most beneficial? I know you said you've used recreationally. I do all the time, and I still feel that that's a form of healing and being intentional, or you can make it. But yeah, do you have are you microdosing, or I guess, do you have any future journeys planned, or can you kind of talk to us about some of the psychedelics and what major shifts from any, or the I'd like to hear what made the most impact.
I think I really do enjoy LSD the most, but it's quite a time commitment. I've done LSD trips that are 12 hours.
Wow.
I find that from a reality perspective, in terms of shifting reality in quantum physics and manifestation, I've been able to go into an LSD trip and then come out of the LSD trip, and 2 to 3 things that were in the trip had manifested within 24 hours, whether it's a text from someone or whatnot. Um, I've done mushrooms as well. To me, mushrooms are much more creative. They fuel me creatively. I can come up with a song on them. They're fun to release energy, laughter, etc. The one that actually has worked the most for me the past while is ketamine therapy, legal ketamine therapy.
Mm.
And two things. It has really worked to dissolve an egoic mind. My egoic mind, one of the things about having a life with a lot of trauma and the fight or flight we're talking about is you can be really set in your ways, and you can be rigid, and you can hold on to your beliefs because you're trying to squeeze them to survive all the time. And when you try to think that things are going to get better, then what happens is the mind pops in and goes, well, it didn't get better last time. And what about this? And you remember this person let you down. And it constantly kind of does that loop, that destructive loop that people get stuck in. So
Mhm.
for me, in terms of actual healing, I did ketamine for a short period, about 2 months. It was an amazing experience. I did very high doses. I did
Mhm.
what they said was, and I think I just have the mind for it. Like I said, I do 6 grams of mushrooms, and I could probably
Mhm.
do 7. Um, I did the highest legal dose. I remember at a certain point, I completely disassociated out of my body. I was floating completely out of my body. I couldn't feel the back of my body. And I was moving sort of through different kind of areas. At a certain point, I was almost like above the table where it was happening. I was just kind of looking down at myself, same way that people speak about in a near-death experience or
Mhm.
when they do DMT. And that was interesting. And then what really freaked me out in this whole experience was what flashed before me was that previous life that was discussed
Yes.
about, where I was a female healer. I kind of came to in the middle of a village, and there were women carrying baskets with a bunch of fruit. And I looked down and I saw these little feet in the sand. And they looked like little girl feet. And what really struck me at that moment was the most intense deja vu I've had, which sort of
Mhm.
felt like, oh, I've been here, and oh my God, I'm home. I remember this.
Mhm.
And I haven't been able to tap into that past life of the musician,
Mhm.
that would be living through the 80s or whatnot. I haven't tapped into that one, but there's something about the ketamine that allows a disassociative state that allowed me to not only just leave the body and move my consciousness, but also visit these past lives in pretty vivid detail. I mean, it was only for about 5 seconds, but I saw it,
Wow.
and then I sort of snapped back into my body, like directly down, and I was back on Earth, let's say.
Mm. Wow. Yeah. Have you had your Akashic records read?
No, but I've read my Dharma, but I haven't
Okay.
read that.
Yeah, I had a reading done, and it was, yeah, it put me, I had shivers up and down. A lot of it made sense. I don't need to go into all the details, but apparently I lived a life in isolation. And the reason for this podcast, mushrooms saved me from alcohol essentially, but it really kind of helped. Um, I feel like I've always had a need for escapism. So it kind of put a name behind that. And true or not, it just, for me, it's more maybe knowledge. But yeah,
Yeah.
I believe it's helped me to kind of identify some of my behaviors just by understanding some of this inherited things, shall we say, that we come into this life with. Um,
And also, it's not only it's your ancestral trauma. We talk about, I had a woman that was a pretty advanced spiritual healer. She said to me, "Where do you think your phobias come from? Where do you think these irrational fears that you have of like mice
mm.
and snakes when you've never had an experience with them?" So she said that was past life, and then she also sort of said that, we don't talk about. She told me this really interesting experiment. We talk about ancestral trauma. What's in our DNA? What are we born with? What we feel the pain of our ancestors. And she was talking about this experiment. What they did was they took mice and they shocked them, and every time they shocked them, they would give them the smell of cherry blossoms. And they did that for a while, and then the mice had babies. And immediately, once the babies were born, they took the babies and they moved them away from them so as not to interfere with the experiment. And they noted that when they would go up to the babies, they would just wave cherry blossoms in front of their face. The parts of their brain that were associated with fear would light up like crazy.
Mm,
So
I
we're
mm,
passing things through generations that we don't even realize, and we've got a lot of work to do. It's a full-time job, the
absolutely.
healing process.
Yeah, and any conversation around it is so appreciated for me. And I, again, thank you for going there, because not everybody will. So I'm so intrigued to hear always. I was wondering, do you have experience, I'm sorry, with DMT, 5-MeO, and uh, or regular, or tell me.
Yeah, so I've done. I did DMT alone, which is ill-advised. I am a almost irrationally fearless person to a degree. I sort of just go through life just having fun and pushing through. And you know, one of the benefits of going through a lot of difficult times in my life, you know, losing friends, losing partners, um, is that I have this really heavy self-reliance. And so I always think, okay, I'll be okay if I can make it work. And so one of the problems is then I get into situations where I think I can do everything.
Mm,
So I did receive DMT from someone smoking to smoke it. You know, the
okay.
ingesting it is the ayahuasca. And I figured I wouldn't do the ayahuasca because I thought, well, you know, that's like hours of commitment. And if it goes poorly, I can't really pull out. Versus the smoking is going to be a period of about 10 to 15 minutes. And if it's a nightmare on earth, then I can just pull back. So I just bought it and I asked the guy, I said, what do I do? Do I just like close my eyes or do I whatever? And he goes, if your eyes are open or closed, it doesn't matter. And that part really freaked me out. I was thinking, oh God, here we go. And I just went onto my couch. It was like 8. This is when I lived in Canada. It was like 8 p.m. and I just smoked it myself.
Okay.
And he told me to do really big hits on it. And immediately after I hit it, this sort of portal opened of intense light and sort of fractals. And it was really, I don't know if you've done it, but it's almost like a roller coaster when you get on one of those roller coasters
Mm,
where they accelerate really quickly at the beginning at
yes.
certain theme parks. And within like 5 seconds, I was like, oh, I'm here. And I saw entities, I saw colors, I interacted with little entities. They were not even people, they were just sort of blobs. Um, and then I saw what is essentially my future music career. I
Mm,
came up with the idea for how I want my career. Once I've done enough of these podcasts, we'll start the tour.
okay.
Um, I envisioned a concert where we would all arrive and put our phones away and get back to human connection. And we would start with some breath work and meditation for the first 10 minutes.
Oh.
And this really cool space of fractals and sacred geometry and kind of clean modern spirituality in 2025 with the visuals. And I
Mm,
saw the whole thing during that experience. And I think that's what filled me with that almost irrational confidence to do this
I
and to put a
see.
significant amount of money in it because I saw it and it felt so real and I was
Mhm.
connected to it. And I said, well, let me just on a quantum level, just connect with it and make it my reality.
Wow. Yeah, I have experience. I sat with DMT 5-MeO, so Bufo. So
Ah,
there's no visuals really. Well, for some people, I guess they say, but for me, no. But it was that racing roller coaster, dark tunnel. But I ended up, the universe was holding me. I say it was like I was Simba, like, oh, like it was from dark to light. I've had DMT just straight up like you, but I've never broken through. But maybe I'm holding back.
interesting.
So I'm very cautious about using safely. So I'm sure that I'll be in the right spot at the right time. But yeah, it takes a lot of balls, that's for sure.
It does, yeah. And I don't recommend. I'm not
Yeah,
recommending this.
absolutely. Yeah.
With the bufo, I wanted to ask you because it's something I've considered.
Mm.
Coming out of it, did it change your views on what reality is? Some people move into non-duality. How did you feel about reality, and how did that change for you?
For me, my experience was more of a release. I like to call it my 20-year scream. So I've done a lot of work with psilocybin. I'm a solo, uh, I guess, self discoverer seeker myself. I have very little ceremonial experience, but I like to get messy and I like to release essentially. So with my 5-MeO experience, I broke through and it was like racing down this crazy dark tunnel. And I was up here disassociated, and down here, my body was, I was bear hugging my coach and screaming like this primal, like anger, like, apparently.
Apparently. Oh, you didn't know you were doing it. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
I
different.
mean, in retrospect, it was very confusing what was going on, because I up here couldn't believe what was happening down here. I couldn't make sense of it. Um, and then before I knew it, it was like a complete 180, and I was entering bright light that never, and that was the positive upside. But anyway, for me, I am still wrapping my head around this massive release of anger. A lot of it was a failed marriage of 20 years. We started a business together that we built together, and I think I do a good job releasing sadness and emotion, but I tend to take a lot of shit. and it was like this huge purging of, and so I kind of relate to you when you say you had this like confidence, or this like just kind of this knowing, like, I'm going to get into this music. This is how it's going to go. This is, it was more like a me being born again with this attitude, like, I don't need to take shit, and men can be mean, and I can,
Yes.
not even men, women, everybody. So for me, it was
But
more.
especially men. No, I mean, women are a different kind of mean, I find, but yes.
There's assholes everywhere, right?
Right.
So, anyway, when your question kind of asks about reality, I would
Hmm.
say psilocybin has provided me um, more storytelling, and the idea of me understanding frequency, vibration, all of the things. Psilocybin has been more of a teacher for me, but that's probably because I've sat with it dozens and dozens of times. And for me, this DMT 5-MeO experience, it was wow. It was crazy. I don't need it anytime soon. Um, but yeah, it was a wild release. I ended up getting sick, massively sick, for about 2.5 weeks after. I had cold sores. I think I was just purging anger.
Sure. Sure. Makes sense.
Yeah, I
They
don't
say a
know.
lot of illness is that's what it is, stored energy, right? Just
Yeah,
coming out.
yeah.
Wow.
So it's a good one. They put it right up. I always like to think of the plant medicines as like this Christmas tree or pyramid with grandmother ayahuasca on top. 5-MeO is right up there. Ibogaine or iboga. And
Hmm.
then, mushrooms are these children. I always talk about this on the show, but where you can really be playful. I mean, especially maybe not at 6 grams, but, and ask questions. And for the first time I experienced, the first ceremony I was ever in was this past February, but there was actual live musicians with instruments. And I saw a lot of people in ceremony kind of having these somatic reactions. And I had never experienced anything like that. I said, mushrooms make me feel that. And before I knew it, it was like the music, the frequency was flowing through me. Like I was a tuning fork, and it was just this whole other experience of release, Um, but yeah, I feel the mushrooms are so playful, or can be. And
Yeah.
some of these other medicines, you have no choice. You're going
Let's go
here
all in.
and you're going to pop out the other side. So, I mean,
Yeah.
the same can happen with psilocybin, obviously, but.
I did last month I did what's called a Kundalini awakening, or a
Mm,
light ceremony. So the idea is to move dormant energy at the base of your spine up. And I brought
okay.
some friends because I went the one time, and we just do breath work for 30 minutes straight. But then the facilitators come around and they do Reiki and these all other instruments and frequencies, sound bowls. And it is one of the most powerful. It's we don't do any plant medicine on it, but it's just as powerful as having a psychedelic experience.
Mm,
Hypertrophic breath work, you can have the same thing. There are people crying, screaming, speaking in tongues.
Wow.
I try not to judge because I'm thinking, okay, well, I don't know what people are going through, why they're crying. Their mom could have passed away last week. That's why they're here. I've made weird noises. I'm not, but when I go home, again, it's all energy. I'm like, okay, I could write an album today.
Yeah.
And you just open the channel, and I feel like sometimes I speak about this stuff, and it is from a bit of a privileged place, because not only do we have access to these things, but also we have time to do them. And a lot of people, you got 3 kids running around, and you may have a lot of the trauma that I had or you had, but you don't have the time to heal. And I feel very fortunate that I have the time and the hours to actually put in the energy into healing, into energy healing, Kundalini awakening, all these different things I do to bring myself back to that childlike wonder, which is what we're
Yes.
really all seeking.
Well, yes, thank you for saying that. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, here you are having a wild experience, no medicine involved, right? And it's just further, in my opinion, a further point that healing and or integration is truly never ending. I've sat in sound bath before, and my mom didn't recently pass away, and I am just bawling, and at the time not really understanding. I mean, you get glimmers and illuminations maybe, but yeah, I'm really just trying to press that we can have, there's so many modalities, breath work, meditation, medicine, where we can have these hits, or and some of them might be so creative and out of this world, and let's go write a song. And other times it's okay, I need to take pause and I need to understand what this feeling is. And that's where my mind goes to all sorts of ancestral things. So again, it's just so great to be able to have conversation out loud. And you are someone that you've had so many obstacles, but also so many wonderful highlights. And I love to highlight. I love when I can talk to people and they've told me how they've been able to heal through the medicine and other modalities, but also be able to create and
Yeah.
co-create and kind of focus not on the problem solving, but on, creative solutions and future mindset and growth and all of the things, attraction, abundance. So do you have any, for our listeners out there, any, I don't know, you've already given us some of your meditation tips and techniques, but yeah, I'd like to talk about attraction and kind of receiving. And did you have a big shift? Have you always felt like you were someone who's been able to receive, or were you someone that didn't feel deserving at some point? And that's something you've been working on. I would just love to hear kind of your personal story there, if you don't mind.
Sure. I mean, around sort of metaphysics, that's something I sort of got into in the last little while. I've been able to manifest literal miracles.
Wow.
I don't think it's me. I think anyone has this ability. I just think you have to have that high trade openness, right? You have to go into a lot of this stuff willing to sort of rewrite the programming that you've received most of your life. I think the benefit of having an illness for 18 years. I mean, I was 1 month away from having surgery to remove 13 inches of my colon.
Mm,
And I just knew, whether it's my higher self, source energy, whatever it is, that I was not meant to go in that path. And so that kind of kickstarted my healing process, not just through consciousness work, but red light therapy. I filter all my water. I don't allow chemicals in my house, which then allowed me to heal myself from that. And then it kickstarted the ability to say, well, what else couldn't be true? I would have laughed at those girls doing energy work in Solana Beach 5 years
mm,
ago. I came from a childhood where my parents were both doctors. So that would have been absurd.
mm,
But a lot of the people that we've been told are a little out there. There's certainly people that are truly out there, and we've established that. But a lot of people that are out there are actually brilliant and open-minded. And I just encourage people, my producer, Rich Pilkington, who does a lot of my songs, he's a really established producer. I really credit him with seeing the journey that I went through and writing these songs and just everything that I was telling him about, and he himself has then gone on that journey. And I think that's kind of beautiful if you can influence one person, but you
Mm-hmm.
need that ability to question things. And when people come from credentialism, or they come from an environment in which they are told that they're a god, then it's really hard for them to think that they may be wrong, even 10%. And you can feel the ego defenses go up when you try to question them on things like energy healing, or holistic health work that I do. And they'll say, I want to see the studies. I'm like, here's the studies. I'm right in front of you. I don't have depression anymore, and I don't have an illness that made me live in the hospital for most of my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So if you aren't there, then I'm never going to be able to get you there. And it's not my job to get you there.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to go through things like you were mentioning on your own journey. Something has to spark that. And in a way, I'm very grateful for being sick for so long, because it's filled me with such a level of gratitude when I'm able to just walk outside and it's a sunny day,
Mm-hmm.
and getting an iced coffee and walking around, and I'm not taking 8 pills, and I'm not hooked up to an IV. And I do think I had to go through this whole journey and everything, divine order, to make music and go on this journey now. It wouldn't have worked back then.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, harkening back to what you were saying about attraction, it's really important for people to realize that they are much more powerful than they realize. People it's not just about metaphysics, quantum entanglement, things like that. It's just about how you see yourself too. Is a whole journey. I mean, the reason people do subconscious reprogramming, subliminals, hypnosis, they do it because they've told themselves a story about themselves through limiting beliefs that is not true.
Mm-hmm.
And you, if no one really holds you accountable, whether it's a therapist or a spiritual healer, no one says, is that true? Are you really unlovable? Do you really have evidence that that's true? You just keep the loop going. And so
Mm-hmm.
these things like psychedelic and these different therapies are the hard work. It really allows you to kind of look inside and go like, wait, am I running a program that doesn't make any sense? And that's what I had to do, is I had to think like, you know, why can't I go be a world famous musician? Someone has to be that person.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it's cost me a substantial amount of money to fund this music career, but at no point have I had a level of reticence. I've just sort of plugged ahead, and I do feel like nothing else matters, because I found my purpose, and I found the flow, and I found my connection to why I'm on earth, and I know now how to harness energy, but I don't speak in ways that I used to. I don't say I'm sick. I don't say I'm about to get sick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't say there's a cold coming on. I
Mm-hmm.
don't say I don't have enough money. I don't say these things. And I don't do
Yeah.
it from a delusional framework. I do it from the framework of starting to understand that everything is energy. And we know through observing particles that they change. So if you're going to observe your reality in that way, don't be surprised if that's what shows up.
Wow. I love that. We speak the same language, Jordan. I think it's such a subtle, positive mentality. I mean, I have a 13-year-old daughter, so just the basics. But yeah, so much is about perception. And I think that's one thing that mushrooms have really um, taught me to understand. Even within my journeys, I can get a little caught up on, I don't know, some negative something rather. And it's like the mushrooms are, there's the acknowledgement, but then at some point, how am I going to perceive this? It could either be this negative thing I'm not going to be able to transmute and just kind of shove it back down, or it's like sit with it, work with it until you perceive it, or in a new form or manner that's not negative. So it's that whole observer effect is quite fascinating.
Yeah, I've had that experience, but I've also we're talking about like just these patterns, is they're going to keep showing up until you break them. So,
Mm.
you will attract the same pattern in people in, say, your romantic life, until you learn the lesson that you are worthy and you're not going to accept this type of behavior, and it's a loop. But
Have
you have to be
you
conscious of it, right?
I'd love to talk. Are you currently dating?
Uh
Well,
oh.
I'm just talking in regards to it's such an exercise in mirroring, right?
Sure.
So, um, I do not want to talk about my dating life, but my
Oh,
point is,
I
you,
will.
you, you,
I'll
okay,
talk
here we
about
go. But
it. No.
I just find you attract exactly kind of what needs to be seen or illuminated in yourself, and
Yeah.
you can work together to grow or run. But anyway, yeah, I'd love to hear anything you have to say regarding maybe dating and being more aware. I'd love to hear it all.
Um, one of the things about being a songwriter is that you tend to write predominantly about love and relationships, whether that's falling in love, falling out of love, the nuances, the middle ground, all these different things. And so I try to live in the present, but what's been difficult is writing these songs is you have to revisit moments, specific moments that flash in front of you at 2 a.m. that I'm singing into my phone. And you have to go back to them. And, my teacher said, look at them from the observer effect, because what you're going to do is you're going to re-traumatize yourself over and over as you're writing these songs. While you're writing them, you're singing them, you're producing them. Um, I have always been fascinated about love. I have had it's kind of been one of those things in my life that's been difficult for me because I couldn't control it, and also because I through my father, my dad left very early on, and so I sort of learned that people would abandon you, and that there was a lot more complicated than love. But I also learned from a very young age. Um, I'm in my 30s, and when I was younger, I I didn't grow up in a time where gay men were in the media. There were a lot of pop stars that were gay men. There were movies about it. I lived the first 18 years of my life as sort of a ghost.
Mm.
And it was like society wasn't built for me. I didn't really see myself anywhere unless it was some sort of caricature. And so I learned very on. And again, there's men that are older than me that can say even more so. I learned very on that my love was different, and that I was broken, and that that I needed to watch my back when I would kiss someone in public. Um, a lot of different things I learned about love through being a gay man, and but it's been a very beautiful experience because I have learned what it's like for when I listen to the downtrodden. I was able to launch one of the biggest gay podcasts, and that was a success where we helped gay men come out of the closet.
Mm.
Um, but I learned love through not only my father and society in a distorted manner, and it's been something that I've worked really hard to overcome. Um, I currently go into love and dating right now very differently than I did before. First of all, people are always terrified I'm going to write a song about them, which honestly is probably the case. So, it's like I don't make guarantees. I write about my life, right? I write about things that are 10 years ago too. I also write about other people's relationships and things that I notice. There's a song that I'm working on at the moment that's sort of a friend of mine's relationship, and she's describing it to
Mm.
me, and I'm kind of trying to understand it.
Mm.
Um, but it's fascinating for me. It fascinated me, and actually, the part of it that's fascinated me the most is the relationship with yourself, the
Mm.
self
Mm.
love, because what you were just saying about it's going to be reflected back to you. It's like you're
Mhm.
going to attract people that are going to reflect that back to you. They're going to trigger it over and over until
Mhm.
you learn. And perhaps there's a good amount of utility in looking in the mirror in the morning and saying, I love myself, and actually
Mhm.
looking in your eyes. I mean, just an exercise for your audience. Look at
Yeah,
yourself in the mirror very closely and say, you're the best. I love you. And watch how uncomfortable it is the first few times. And that'll teach you how much work you have to do.
I love that, Jordan, especially first thing in the morning. Eek. But
Yeah. Or if you've
it.
gained 15 pounds and you're, insecure about that.
Yeah, I've been trying to be super mindful, at least first thing in the morning, before you get out of bed, before you touch your phone, just taking, I mean, a minute to five or whatever it is before you even turn this thing on. But it's challenging for me. Mornings are I would say, most anxiety ridden time.
Mm.
And so like I said, I've just really, really, I count on that, even that little brief bed meditation to just set me up for more success than I would would if I hadn't. But I think that's an awesome tip for listeners. Just starting there, because a lot of people, when it comes to meditation, well, I don't, do I have to go sit cross-legged? I don't have, it's like, no, honey, we can do this. We can do this right now as
Or
we're
they say,
talking.
I can't do it. I've
Right?
tried once or twice. I
I
can't do it.
can't.
It's like,
Right.
well, put your phone down. You don't actually have ADHD. You have an addiction to your phone. And if you went off of it for a week, it might mysteriously go away and then you might be able to meditate. Just something to consider, But a lot of people say I can't do it. I'm like, I couldn't do it before, but once I stopped stimulating my brain constantly, it was a lot easier.
I was going to ask you, because we talk about frequency, but one of my tips I've been giving I do psychedelic coaching, clients for meditation. Even if you go to YouTube, you can find, or you were mentioning, I always say it wrong, Solafigo, healing
Oh,
frequencies.
solfeggio
Thank
frequencies.
you.
Yeah.
But you can even find, or if you, I know it's not the best to listen to via headphones, whatever speaker, but just basic sound bowl frequency, and then sitting in meditation and just trying to follow the sound and
Yeah.
nothing else puts me where I like to be. So I actually do meditate with sound mostly, because I like to use the method of focusing on uh, sound, which strips away all these layers. I was going to ask, are you more in silence or?
No, I always do solfeggio frequencies, and I do the
Oh,
frequency that lines up with the specific chakra that I'm trying to
oh, I see. Okay.
target, right? So if it's the root one, if I'm feeling, I just moved to America, so it's like, am I feeling out of sorts?
Mm.
For me, though, I usually almost always go back to the heart chakra, because we're sort of learning now that you look at Joe Dispenza's work, we're sort of
Yes.
learning that our hearts are sort of emanating a frequency out. We know we have a 12-foot electromagnetic field around us, but we're learning now how our hearts can communicate with the quantum field. And so I go into my heart and I just tell people 528 hertz, 639 into the heart, feel the glow. And you would be shocked how, if you really focus at about the 5-10 minute mark, you could convince your body for a very specific period of time that you're a billionaire. So just try it as an experiment. So it's
Mm.
not about the Ferrari, it's not about the house, it's about the feeling. What's the feeling, right? Neville Goddard, feeling's the secret. So what is the
Mhm.
feeling? If the feeling is peace, I don't stress about money, I made it, I'm confident, whatever it is, feel
Mm.
that. And if I told you right now you just won $100 million, if you didn't in the lottery, you would feel that feeling in your body, right? You'd feel it. Oh my God, it doesn't change what's actually happened. And so if you
Mhm.
think about it like that, if you want to feel if you want to feel like you're in love, if you want to find a partner, if you want to align with that energy, if you want to rewrite your subliminal programming, go
Mhm.
sit with the solfeggio, feel your
Mhm.
heart open, and feel what it's like to have love for a partner and yourself and a dog and a tree. It's all the same, right?
I love
And
it.
just
Yeah.
sit in that.
You know, Thank you again, just for simplifying. I think that so many people get caught up in the visualization, which I guess I don't have the studies in front of me, but I'm sure can't hurt or hinder. But what I think mushrooms have taught me is, in some of these journeys, I feel like I've learned things that I can't possibly explain through words or drawings. They're more or less like these essences or these feelings of, this is how it's going to go down. This is where you came. And you can't really surmise it into word or, I don't know, pictures. So yeah, I love Joe Dispenza. I think he calls it heart resonance, heart or coherence. Sorry.
Heartbreak
Um,
coherence. Yeah.
yes, heart brain coherence. And yeah, I love how you said you got give it some time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes it's a commitment. So,
But you
I
can
think,
almost feel, like, I find you can almost feel the chemicals move in your body. Like Yeah, I did one time as an experiment that like I won the lottery for $100 million, and I'm like, let me see what that would feel like in my body. And like I could feel like that shiver in my body and that endorphin rush. I could feel it all. And it's like we're so much more powerful. And I think what
Mm,
you're saying is so interesting about the mushrooms, because you're hinting at something that it took me a little while to understand, is that when you say that you can't really put it into words, it's because the human mind is so limited,
mhm,
right? What how the higher self actually communicates to us is through intuition and
mhm,
feelings. So it tries to guide us towards our path, right? Stay away from that person, don't go there. That's your highest joy, For me, music's just my highest joy, so I just stay on my highest joy, and that's it. And that's what you have to do, is go with your intuition, because it's so powerful. Your thoughts are mired in drama and trauma and programming and all these things. Your thoughts are really polluted. You want to go with your heart, and that's why
mm,
we lean into that heart meditation, because it's guiding us exactly where we want to go. And at any point in time, there was a spiritual teacher that told me, your problem is thinking. Stop thinking. I was like, how do I
mhm,
stop thinking? I'm a human. I have to like pay my taxes, whatever. And she's like, you don't understand how powerful you are. You have a higher self that has brought you down to earth, but that higher self still exists. And it has an infinite amount of information and knowledge that you could never have with your limited human mind. So just go
mm,
with your heart,
mm.
Jordan. And that's what I've been doing with music. And it's just been like a dream. The people that come in, the way the songs come together, it's been the easiest, 11 months of my life.
Wow. Let's talk more about your music. So, you
My
said,
favorite.
yeah. Um, what's the easiest way? Well, you're going to drop a single here in a couple weeks, and then yeah, talk to us about how we can find you and check you out.
So it's Jordan Power on wherever you get your music: Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Deezer. Lots of people listen on Deezer. I didn't even know what that was.
Oh, okay.
Um, I have made myself the rule where I'm releasing a new song every month for 2 years straight. Which is very ambitious because it comes quick every month. But I started that in January, so I'm 3 songs in. My next song is called Crazy. It comes out about 3 weeks or so. I don't know when this is going to air, but sometime probably mid-June.
Okay.
Um, the song itself, I do write more pop music and some EDM and stuff like that, but I really try to have a message with everything I write. For example, the last song that I put out called Mr. Slipstream, it was a commentary on, we've built a society where men are largely valued for their status and women are largely valued for how they look. And both those things can create a lot of problems. And what I found really interesting, I was talking to my friend of mine who was a woman that was quite successful. She was being penalized by a partner that was insecure around her money and her success. And I had kind of related that because I also date men, right? So I talked to her about that, but then I thought, oh, it's also interesting because when you're a gay guy, you also compete on status because you're two men. So that's also
Mm,
another weird hindrance that's going on. So I
mhm,
try to write songs that provide a level of social commentary, which with pop music isn't usually the case. It's usually just, hey, this person broke my heart. Let me add a hook.
mm,
Um, yeah. So the new song "Crazy" I was writing about is sort of like, you have to be crazy to fall for someone. You have to be crazy to let go, particularly as you get older, because you have all these bad memories that are flashing in front of you of everything that could go wrong. When you're 16, you just
mhm,
fall because you think it always works out and you think it'll be for forever. And, we know
mhm,
statistically that's very unlikely. And so I was kind of writing this song Crazy, where it also had the meaning of like, am I a little crazy? Am I difficult to love?
mm.
Um, and one of the lyrics is "Found your heart, lost your mind," and that's kind of something we go through, right? We can, some of the great one of my great therapists said, "Don't confuse intensity with intimacy."
Oh,
And some of the people that I've been the most crazy about were terrible for me. They were a reactivation of all my childhood wounds from my primary
mm,
caretaker. So I try to write songs about not just love, about life in general, and I try to leave people with something, double meanings through lyrics. I don't try to get into a lot about what the songs are about, because for everyone with art, they take on different, kind of reasons and stuff. But like some of them, I wrote this song called Money about this woman I met in Orange County, and she was kind of crazy, and like she was in high society, but she was the most miserable person I've ever met. And she was trapped in this relationship with this guy in a $30 million house. So just things that come about. And I think I try to think like, what would that be like for her? That's the
Right.
ultimate way you relate to other people, even if you don't understand what they're going through. You try to think, well, is there a little bit of me in this? Is this why I'm interested in this?
Mm.
So that's what I'm trying to do with my songs coming out over the next little while. It's like, obviously we make them hooky and there's a lot that goes into the production, but I try to address certain issues and really just bleed out the lyrics. That's how you make great music, is you don't think about, oh my God, who's going to judge me for this? Or did I say the wrong thing?
Right.
You just open the channel and release, essentially.
Well, you've got an extra special channel. um,
It's a lot sometimes, I tell you.
I was going to ask, do you mainly do online music, or do you have any performances? Have you gone that
So
route?
for the past year, I've just really put my nose to the grindstone and really just made I made 19 songs in 11 months, put them out.
Wow.
And they get better as time goes on, I find, some of them, but it's sort of like people got to see me get a music education, because I never went to school for that. So I'm slowly getting better. My goal is essentially to keep releasing a new song every month for, like I said, 2 years, and then tour the world and build a movement around. I explain how I want the concert to look, but I also want the merch at the concert to not be a hoodie with a bunch of crap in it that people put on their bodies and absorb some microplastics.
Mm.
I want to sell merch like a shower filter, the things that brought me back to physical health. And then we would use the music as a way of mental health and, addressing our mental health. So my goal is essentially just to keep working my butt off, doing a bunch of podcasts for the next year, and then amassing enough of a fan base that I can just get out there and meet people. And I really want to build a movement. I really think it's a good time for a lot of people to get off their phones. This stuff is destroying our brains, and get back to connection and who we are and where we come from, and whether that's spiritually on our personal level. And so that's what I'm trying to build with Jordan Power, the music brand, is really trying to build a kind of unique place where we're not at each other's throats about things that don't matter on the internet, whether it's liberal, conservative, whatever it is. I kind of am just moved into apolitical space, because really the news for me is so low vibration, and it's such a level of like trauma-based mind control that
Mm.
I just want to get back to our primordial basics.
I love it. I love how you are also infusing, um, when the day when you have your sold out show with all the merch, selling products that are um, bettering our health. But yeah, that's such a special component, um, that you had to endure to realize how grateful you are for your health and being able to sing and do all the things. So it's really such a beautiful story, and I'm captivated, and I can't wait to keep following along. And yeah, I'm excited for this new release. So when that happens, we find it on Spotify.
Yeah, so wherever you listen to my music, just hit the follow button at the top.
All
That
right. Okay.
usually, just if you get new updates, it's like when you post a new YouTube update, same kind of idea. Or you can follow me on Instagram. It's Jordan J Power on Instagram, and I'll just post usually when I have new stuff. I'm not super active on there because I am writing music constantly and just constantly
Got
working
you.
because I love it. But that's where I'm going to be posting new updates. And then I'm about to launch a TikTok. And when I say I mean I'm hiring someone to do it, because I can't really go on there because that's just really kind of freaks me out. I've never even been on TikTok my whole life. I know that's kind of a weird thing to say, but I know I
I
need to get the music out. So
Yeah, well, there's so many ways and so many avenues, and I feel like artists have the hardest time promoting themselves. So sometimes it's easier just to get somebody who knows what they're doing. I can't wrap my mind around any of it. There's so many platforms,
Yeah.
but we just do the best we can. But I've already been checking you out. You have like an amazing Instagram following and Spotify. So I'm just really proud of you, like
Thank
for
you.
like tuning in to what Jordan was feeling and knowing, and this path that provides you just so much, just for your own sanity, but also trying to, help people, inspire others. So it's such a beautiful, beautiful story. And I have really enjoyed our time
Thank
here
you.
today.
Me too.
Is there anything else, any parting words you'd like to leave the listeners with?
Ooh, so much
Any
pressure. I don't know.
wisdom?
I, you know, I I think I want to be careful when I start this movement and this sort of side supplement health thing that I want to do along with this is not to get too preachy or interfere with people's lives. So I try to stay on the sidelines a bit, and I don't really offer a lot of like unsolicited information unless people come to me. But I think what I would just say to anyone listening in your audience is you are a lot more powerful than you realize. Um, I think it is try to, if you're going to be a different person, if you want to be a different person, try to live like a different person for a week. Try to interact with new people, try to smile at everyone you encounter, try to talk to yourself only in a positive way. Don't worry that someone said, I think it was, I was watching a video of Teal Swan. She was saying, you know, humility is overrated because when you look up the definition of humility, it's a lowering of one's self-importance.
Mm.
And so
Mhm.
her point was, in terms of going on this journey about self-acceptance and self-love, that why are we lowering our sense of importance? It doesn't mean that we're better than people, but it just means that we're just as good as them.
Mhm.
And whether they have billions of dollars or whatever it is. And I just say, for anyone that follows me and likes the music or just wants to follow me in general to learn things, I just say, I was in a very bad place for a really long time. I've gone through kind of a nightmare of a life where I think most people would have given up or succumbed to a heroin needle or something. And I really want to inspire that with people is that like it's never too late to start again. Your past doesn't matter. Let it go. Live in the present and believe in yourself. And I do think we all come to Earth with innate talents and gifts, and there's a reason we're here. And it took me a really long time of running around like a maniac trying to find mine, and a lot of money and but I'm finally here and I'm at peace with, I need to be a musician for every day for the rest of my life. And I think a lot of people can find that, but I encourage people to go on a journey, find a local yoga studio, find a local spiritual person, open your mind, listen to them. Even if you think it's a little wacky, even if you got a degree from Yale, and you don't go down that route because you're, so much smarter than everyone else, blah, blah, blah. Just stay open-minded to anything. And even the fact that you could be wrong about a lot, and a lot of the things you've been taught are wrong.
Mm.
And try to understand people. We're at this place now where everything's nuanced, right? No one's fully left wing, fully right wing. No one's fully in this camp, fully in that camp. Everything is you understand it through nuances. Well, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and really just have conversations with people from an open mind
Mm.
and say, yeah, I understand what you're saying here, but this, and I think that's how we're going to heal collectively at this time where it seems like things are really going off the rails.
Right. I so beautifully put, and so appreciated. Again, just hearing any conversation around all of it really, I think is so helpful, and normalizing for people who it's a never ending conversation, really. Just, but yeah, I'm thankful to hear about your experiences and your future. It sounds so exciting. Um, and I will definitely be keeping an eye on you, and our listeners know to find any details, links, and all of that in the show details. So I'll be sure to list them. Jordan, thank you so much. It's
This
been
has been
great.
great. Thank you
I
so
really
much.
appreciate your
Appreciate it.
time. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thank you. For more information, please visit mindsonmushrooms.com. Thank you for joining the journey.